Hello everyone, I wish you peace and happiness. Are you all healthy? Today, I will continue to share with you the difficult, scarce and challenging days of Huyen and her mother trying to make a living. Early in the morning, when the mist still covered the mountain paths, Huyen wore a conical hat, carried a bamboo basket on her back, and went alone to the mountain to pick medicinal leaves. She slowly walked along winding dirt roads, weaving through rocks and dense green bushes. The sound of birds singing echoed throughout the forest, and the cool breeze carrying the scent of grass and trees made the morning peaceful. Huyen diligently searched for different types of medicinal leaves, hoping to dry and sell them to earn a little money to support her and her daughter, Micah, and to give her more abundant days. Venturing deeper into the forest, the trees grew increasingly dense, and only faint rays of sunlight filtered through the thick canopy. In front of Huyen appeared steep, towering cliffs that seemed to reach the sky. She looked up for a moment, searching for a trail along the mountainside, then carefully clung to large rocks and tree roots to climb step by step. Each step was slow and steady because the moss-covered rocks were slippery, and a single misstep could cause a fall. Despite sweat soaking her back and her breathing becoming more rapid, Huyen persisted through each treacherous section, hoping that at the mountain and Apo's summit there would be rare medicinal herbs in the bushes that few had ever reached. Walking along the cliff, Huyen suddenly noticed a green bush growing tightly attached to the rock crevice. The shape of the leaves immediately reminded her of the medicinal plant she had encountered before. She carefully grasped a ledge with one hand, while the other reached out over the edge of the cliff to pluck a few leaves. Huyen brought the leaves to her nose to smell, then broke off a small piece to taste. After a few seconds of sensing the aroma and distinctive flavor, she smiled, confirming that it was indeed the medicinal leaves she was searching for. Not missing the opportunity, Huyen gently gathered large handfuls of leaves, selecting the young shoots and lush green leaves, then neatly packed them into a bamboo basket strapped to her back. Huyen still carefully left some of the plant intact to continue growing, hoping that when she returned next time, this rocky cliff would still be as lush as today. Huyen continued to follow the steep cliffs, where each vertical rock outcrop connected between the mountain slopes. She bent low to maintain her balance, one hand gripping the crevices in the rocks, the other searching for secure footholds before carefully stepping higher. The bamboo basket on her back, though increasingly heavy with filled medicinal leaves, did not deter her from persevering. The wind atop the mountain blew strongly, weaving through the cracks in the rocks and creating a rustling sound that echoed across the mountainside. Despite the treacherous path ahead, Huyen remained undeterred. She carefully observed each bush growing on the cliff face, hoping to find more remaining precious herbs. Sweat dotted her forehead, and her rough hands clung firmly to each ledge, each step bringing her closer to the summit, carrying the hope of gathering as many medicinal leaves as possible to bring home and support her and her child and Apo's life. After crossing the first mountain, Huyen continued along the mountainside to another peak. The area was densely forested, with many plant species growing among the rocky crevices that she had never seen before. While carefully observing, Huyen suddenly noticed a bush that looked very much like the medicinal leaves she often searched for. Out of habit, she only plucked a few leaves, brought them to her nose to smell their distinctive scent, and then took a small piece to taste. Huyen stood still for a few seconds to identify the flavor of the leaves. After being sure that this was the medicinal plant she was looking for, she smiled gently, carefully plucked the branches with healthy green leaves, and placed them into the bamboo basket on her back. She still left some young plants and part of the medicinal bush to continue growing, hoping that this mountain area would always preserve valuable medicinal plants for future visits. After collecting all the medicinal leaves from that mountain peak, Huyen put on the bamboo basket on her back and continued along the mountainside to another peak. The path became increasingly treacherous, with steep cliffs lined up one after another, only enough space for each step. Huyen carefully clung to the rock crevices, slowly climbing each section. Suddenly, a fragment of rock under her foot caused her to slip. In that moment, Huyen immediately clenched her hand into a crack in the rock beside her to avoid falling down the mountainside. Although she maintained her balance, the slip caused her knee to hit the jagged rock face hard, resulting in sharp pain and a burning sensation. Huyen grimaced, took a deep breath and sat down to rest for a few minutes. Seeing that the scratch only bled slightly and did not affect her ability to walk, she dusted off her clothes, stood up more carefully, and continued her journey to gather medicinal leaves on the next mountain ahead. After overcoming the steep cliffs, Huyen finally reached the place with the medicinal bushes she was searching for. Around the base of the tree, there was a relatively flat rock surface. She gently took off the bamboo basket on her back and placed it on the ground to make her work easier. Huyen sat down, carefully using both hands to pick each handful of large leaves, choosing only mature, healthy, green leaves that were not bitten by insects. After each handful of leaves was harvested, she gently dusted them off and returned them to the bamboo basket, carefully arranging them inside to prevent damage. In this way, her nimble hands worked quickly, and the bamboo basket gradually filled up with fresh, green medicinal leaves. After harvesting enough medicinal leaves, Huyen carefully arranged the bunches of leaves in the bamboo basket to prevent them from being crushed. She put the basket on her back, adjusted the straps tightly, and looked around before leaving. Taking slow steps along the steep cliffs, Huyen constantly held onto rocks and tree roots to keep her balance. Overcoming the treacherous slopes, she gradually reached the trail at the foot of the mountain. The morning sunlight was clearly illuminating the forest, and the chirping of birds still echoed among the green trees. Although her knees still ached from the fall earlier and the bamboo basket on her back was heavy, Huyen smiled because today's trip was very successful. On the way down the mountain, Huyen came across a lush green bamboo bush growing along the trail. She stopped, selected the green, clean leaves that were free of insects, and gently plucked small handfuls. Huyen neatly packed the bamboo leaves into a basket on her back, making sure not to mix them with other medicinal leaves she had collected earlier. When she saw the basket was full, she adjusted the strap, looked back at the path ahead, and quickly followed the trail down the mountain. Her steps were tired after a morning of climbing over mountains and crossing streams, but Huyen still tried to walk quickly to get home in time to prepare and dry the newly harvested medicinal leaves. Leaving the foot of the mountain, Huyen followed the dirt path to return home. As she passed by the small market in the village, she suddenly remembered that her basket already contained some freshly picked bamboo leaves from the mountain. Thinking about making a jar of bean sprouts for her and her mother to eat in the coming days, Huyen stopped at a small convenience store by the market to buy some soybeans. After paying, she carefully stored the soybean packet in her bamboo basket, separate from the medicinal leaves and bamboo leaves. Everything was prepared. Huyen smiled and quickly continued walking toward the house where she had asked Micah to help watch over, planning to ferment the soybeans with bamboo leaves upon arrival to have plump, white bean sprouts for their simple meals. Upon arriving at the front gate of the old lady and Appo's house, Huyen called out loudly into the yard, and quote, "Micah, Mom is back." End quote. At that moment, Micah was sitting outside playing with the neighbor and Appo's grandmother. Hearing her mother and Appo's voice, the girl immediately stood up, her face bright with joy. Micah ran quickly towards the yard, spreading her arms wide to embrace Huyen tightly. Huyen smiled gently, one arm holding her daughter close, the other softly stroking the girl and Appo's hair. After a morning of trekking through the forest and climbing mountains to pick medicinal leaves, Micah and Appo's warm hug made all of Huyen and Appo's fatigue seemed to disappear. She bent down to gently kiss her child and Appo's forehead, then mother and daughter held hands as they stepped into the yard, while the old lady smiled kindly, watching with a loving gaze. Huyen took Micah and Appo's small hand and gently led her into the yard. The girl walked while chattering, telling her mother about the game she played while waiting for her to return. The old woman was still sitting in front of the porch, smiling kindly when she saw the mother and daughter. Huyen politely greeted the old woman and then gently placed the bamboo basket down beside her. The old woman looked at the basket filled with medicinal leaves and bamboo leaves, and kindly asked about Huyen and Appo's trip to the mountain. She smiled and replied that she had picked quite a lot of medicinal leaves, only slightly bumped her knee, but it was okay. Hearing that, the old woman nodded gently, reminding Huyen to rest and apply medicine to the scratch to heal quickly. Micah obediently stood close to her mother, her small hand still holding Huyen and Appo's hand. Huyen opened the bamboo basket, took out a bunch of bananas that she had brought back. She smiled, selected a ripe yellow banana, and handed it to Micah. The girl happily accepted it with both hands, whispering and quote, "Thank you, Mom." End quote. Seeing her daughter eagerly peel the banana, Huyen then took the remaining bunch of bananas and approached the old lady. She respectfully held the basket with both hands and gently said, and quote, "Grandma, I am giving this to you. Please accept it." End quote. The old lady was slightly surprised, then smiled kindly, waving her hand to tell Huyen to keep it for herself and her mother. But Huyen still kindly replied, and quote, "My mother and I still have enough, please accept it and enjoy." End quote. Moved by her sincere gesture, the old lady gratefully took the banana basket, her eyes full of love. She gently held Huyen and Appo's hand, thanked her, and advised the mother and daughter to take care of their health. Huyen gently sat down beside the old lady, then took a ripe yellow banana from her bag. She skillfully peeled off each layer of the peel, revealing the fragrant, soft banana flesh, then carefully handed it to the old lady with both hands and softly said, and quote, "Please enjoy this banana." End quote. The old lady kindly smiled and accepted the banana, her eyes shining with emotion at Huyen's thoughtfulness. She slowly took small bites, praising the sweet and fragrant ripe banana as she ate. Sitting beside her, Huyen and Micah smiled as they watched the old lady enjoy her snack. In the sunny small courtyard, the image of the young mother caring attentively for the old lady, along with Micah's clear laughter, created a peaceful, warm, and heartfelt scene. Huyen smiled gently, softly holding Micah in her arms and stroking her soft hair. She kindly said, and quote, "Say goodbye to Grandma, let and Appo's go home." End quote. Micah obediently wrapped her arms around her mother and Appo's neck, turned to the old lady, politely waved her hand, and in a clear voice said, and quote, "Goodbye, Grandma." End quote. The old lady smiled kindly, reached out to pat the girl's head, and responded tenderly, and quote, "Yes, be careful on your way home, both of you. If you need anything, just come and call me." End quote. Huyen bowed her head to thank the old lady, carried Micah, and stepped out of the yard. The mother and daughter slowly returned to their small house. The gentle midday sunlight stretched along the path, bringing a sense of peace and warmth after a busy morning. Upon arriving home, Huyen gently opened the wooden door and stepped into the yard. She placed the bamboo basket down on the porch, took off her soaked coat after a morning of mountain climbing and crossing streams. Micah trotted after her, obediently sitting down beside her. In front of the mother and daughter was a bamboo basket filled with bunches of lush medicinal leaves and handfuls of freshly picked bamboo leaves from the mountain. Huyen reached out to gently stroke each bunch of leaves, checking for any broken branches or weeds. Micah curiously looked into the basket, her big eyes attentively observing each type of leaf with delight. Huyen smiled, pointing out each type of medicinal leaf to her daughter while explaining that they would be washed, dried, and then sold. Huyen took the soybean bag she just bought at the market, poured it into a basin, and carefully picked out the defective, worm-infested, and dry shell pieces. Once she selected the plump beans, Huyen washed them multiple times with water to clean them thoroughly. She gently stirred to make the dirt rise to the surface, then drained the water and replaced it with fresh water until the water was clear. After that, Huyen poured enough clean water to cover the beans for soaking so they would swell evenly. When finished, she carefully carried the basin and placed it on the bamboo table in front of the porch, a dry and clean spot, to prevent dust or insects from falling in. Seeing the neatly soaked beans, Huyen smiled contentedly, planning to ferment some fresh bean sprouts in a few days so that she and her mother could have an additional simple dish for their daily meals. Huyen took the soybean bag she just bought at the market, poured it into a basin, and carefully picked out the defective, worm-infested, and dry shell pieces. Once she selected the plump beans, Huyen washed them multiple times with water to clean them thoroughly. She gently stirred to make the dirt rise to the surface, then drained the water and replaced it with fresh water until the water was clear. After that, Huyen poured enough clean water to cover the beans for soaking so they would swell evenly. When finished, she carefully carried the basin and placed it on the bamboo table in front of the porch, a dry and clean spot, to prevent dust or insects from falling in. Seeing the neatly soaked beans, Huyen smiled contentedly, planning to ferment some fresh bean sprouts in a few days, so that she and her mother could have an additional simple dish for their daily meals. Huyen took several clean bamboo baskets and arranged them neatly in front of her, then pulled the basket full of medicinal leaves closer. She began carefully picking and sorting each type of leaf. Leaves of the same kind were placed together in a separate basket, while different types were placed in other baskets to prevent mixing. Huyen and Appo's hands moved swiftly, both discarding withered, crushed leaves and brushing off grass and dirt remaining on the leaves. Before long, there were many bamboo baskets in front of her, each containing a neatly arranged type of medicinal leaf. Micah sat beside her, attentively watching her mother work, occasionally helping by handing her the correct type of leaf. Seeing the bamboo baskets filled with carefully sorted medicinal leaves, Huyen smiled contentedly, preparing for the drying process to preserve the quality of each herb. Huyen brought out a wooden cutting board and a large knife to place in front of the house. She pulled each basket of medicinal leaves closer, carefully selecting and sorting the leaves before placing them on the board. With steady and decisive strokes, Huyen chopped the leaves into manageable pieces for drying and storage. The rhythmic sound of the knife hitting the cutting board echoed through the quiet midday atmosphere. After chopping each type, she gathered them separately into bamboo baskets, avoiding mixing them with other herbs. Huyen and Appo's hands worked tirelessly, but each movement was very careful and skillful. While carefully pinching each handful of medicinal leaves on the wooden cutting board, Huyen suddenly froze as a violent cough suddenly struck her. She quickly put down the knife, covered her mouth with her hand, and started coughing uncontrollably. Her whole body bent with each cough, her breathing becoming rapid. Huyen closed her eyes, trying to regain her breath, and sat still for a while until she calmed down. When the coughing subsided, she wiped the beads of sweat on her forehead, took a deep breath, and calmly sat to rest for a few more minutes. Although her throat still felt sore and she was a bit tired, Huyen looked at the baskets of medicinal leaves in front of her, decided to rest for a while, and then continued her unfinished work. After taking a break, Huyen picked up the knife and continued her unfinished work. She gathered each handful of sorted medicinal leaves and placed them on the cutting board, then skillfully chopped them into small, even pieces. The rhythmic sound of the knife striking the board echoed in the small house, mingling with the chirping of birds outside. After finishing each batch, Huyen gently scooped the leaves into separate bamboo baskets, spreading them evenly with her hands to prevent them from piling up. She carefully spread the leaves into a thin layer to ensure they dried more evenly when exposed to the sun. Huyen carried the baskets of medicine out to the front yard. In the spacious sunlit midday courtyard, she gently placed each basket in a dry, breezy spot. Huyen used her hand to spread the layer of medicinal leaves once more so that the leaves Huyen and Appo's overlap, helping them absorb the sun evenly and dry quickly. The woven baskets were arranged in a row, filled with the green of freshly picked mountain herbs. Standing in the middle of the yard, Huyen looked up at the clear blue sky and smiled contentedly. With a few more sunny days, these herbs would dry evenly, retain their fragrance, and could be taken to the market to sell, adding a little extra income for her and her mother. Huyen slowly returned to the house. The cough she had earlier still made her throat sore, and her body a little tired. She took a few freshly picked medicinal leaves, carefully gathered them again, and then washed them clean. After draining, Huyen put the leaves into a teapot, added enough water, and placed it on the stove to boil. Soon, the hot steam carrying the gentle aroma of the leaves spread throughout the small house. While watching the fire, little Micah quietly approached, wrapping her small arms around her mother and Appo's waist. The girl leaned her head on Huyen and Appo's shoulder as if trying to pass some warmth to her mother. Feeling her daughter and Appo's gentle embrace, Huyen softly smiled, gently stroking Micah and Appo's tiny hand and tenderly said, "Mom is fine, Don and Appo's worry." The fire under the stove crackled, and the mother and daughter quietly leaned on each other in the peaceful space of the small house. After a while, the medicinal tea on the stove began to boil, and the gentle aroma of herbs spread throughout the small house. Huyen carefully used a cloth to lift the pot off the stove, then slowly poured the hot medicine into a porcelain bowl. She carried the bowl to a bamboo chair on the porch, where a light breeze was blowing. Huyen sat down holding the bowl with both hands, gently blowing on it to cool the liquid slightly, then slowly sipped small amounts. The slightly bitter taste lingered on her tongue, but she remained calm and finished drinking, hoping it would soothe the cough that was tormenting her. Seeing my mother holding a steaming bowl of medicine, Micah ran over quickly, lightly tugging at her shirt and innocently saying, "Mommy, I want to take medicine with you too." Huyen looked at her child with a gentle smile. Since it was just herbal tea she had just brewed from familiar leaves at home, Huyen gently blew on it to cool it down and then handed the bowl to Micah. She advised, "Just take a small sip, it and Appo's still hot." Micah obediently took the bowl with both hands, took a small sip and then grimaced at the slightly bitter taste. Seeing this, Huyen chuckled, gently took back the bowl, and patted her child and Appo's head. She continued to blow on the medicine to cool it further and then slowly drank the remaining portion, while Micah hugged her mother and Appo's arm, smiling innocently in the sunny porch. After finishing the medicine, Huyen placed the bowl on the bamboo table, then stood up and picked up the hoe leaning in the corner of the porch. She slowly walked to the small garden beside the house, where there was a clean, empty patch of land. Choosing a high, airy spot, Huyen began to lightly till the surface soil with the hoe. Each steady strike loosened the soil, breaking small hard clumps and leveling the ground. After completing the task, Huyen used the hoe and Appo's blade to sweep the area again, making it neat and even. She looked at her work and smiled contentedly, planning to bring out the soaked beans later to sprout into bean sprouts, hoping that in a few days mother and daughter would have plump, white sprouts. Huyen went back into the house, carrying a basin of soaked soybeans that had been soaked since morning. The beans, after several hours in water, had swollen, with soft and more uniform skins. She gently poured the beans into a clean bamboo basket, and then sat down in front of the porch. In the natural light, Huyen carefully picked out each bean by hand, removing those that were damaged, shriveled, or did not sprout. The firm, plump beans were kept in the basket, while the damaged ones were gathered separately to be discarded. Huyen was picking up soybeans while softly calling out, "Micah, where are you?" She looked around the yard but couldn't and Appo's see the girl anywhere. Huyen called a few more times, but there was no response. She felt a little worried and quickly looked around the small garden. Suddenly, from a corner of the garden behind a small tree, Huyen glimpsed Micah and Appo's dress. She smiled, pretended to be surprised, then approached and cheerfully said, "Wow, Mom sees Micah now." Hearing her mother find her, Micah burst into giggles, stood up from behind the tree, and ran quickly toward her mother. The girl spread her arms wide and hugged Huyen tightly, pressing her cute face into her mother and Appo's chest. Huyen bent down to lift her up, smiling as she gently pinched Micah and Appo's chubby cheeks and softly said, "You and Appo's very good at hide and seek, but next time Don and Appo's hide for too long, okay? Mom will worry." Micah obediently nodded, tightly hugging her mother and Appo's neck while Huyen gently kissed her forehead before carrying her inside the house to continue her unfinished work. Huyen carried a bamboo basket filled with clean soybeans to the small garden in front of the house, where she had just carefully tilled and leveled the soil. She placed the basket down beside her, took out a clean mosquito net cloth she brought along, and then bent down to spread it on the ground. However, the gentle breeze kept blowing, causing the cloth to be lifted up again. Huyen had to bend over, hold a corner tightly with both hands, and then step over to straighten the other corner. Each time she managed to smooth one side, the wind would lift the other side again. She patiently fiddled with it for a long time, repeatedly smoothing with her hands and using small clumps of dirt to temporarily weigh down the edges of the cloth to keep it in place. Finally, the mosquito net cloth lay flat on the ground, no longer being blown away by the wind. Pippi the dog slowly rolled his little cart to the side. He tilted his head and looked intently, with eyes that seemed curious about what Huyen and her mother were doing. Seeing Pippi sitting close to the curtain, Huyen gently smiled and said, "Pippi, go play somewhere else. Don and Appo's. Sit here or you and Appo's. I'll knock over my beans." But Pippi just wagged his tail softly, stubbornly sitting still and watching Huyen work. Seeing that, Huyen chuckled, gently picked up Pippi and placed him down on a patch of grass not far away. She bent down to pet his head and kindly said, "Pippi, stay still here, okay? After I finish, I and Appo's, I'll play with you." Pippi blinked as if understanding, obediently lying down on the grass, just wagging his little tail slightly and watching Huyen continue her work. After fixing the first piece of fabric, Huyen took another clean piece of fabric and gently layered it on top to create a thicker lining. She carefully smoothed out each corner and adjusted the edges to be neat, so they wouldn't and Appo's be displaced by the wind. Next, Huyen brought out a bundle of bamboo leaves she had just picked from the mountain. She shook off the dust and then evenly spread each layer of bamboo leaves over the fabric. The green leaves were arranged neatly, covering the surface completely to form a natural lining. Huyen gently spread her hand to ensure the leaves were not stacked too thickly, creating a smooth, airy surface. Huyen carried the basket of soaked soybeans over. She bent down, using both hands to pick up handfuls of soybeans and gently spread them evenly over the surface of the bamboo leaves. While spreading, Huyen used her hands to lightly smooth the soybeans so that they formed a thin layer, not piled on top of each other, allowing each bean enough space to sprout. Where the soybeans were still thick, she skillfully moved some to the sparser areas. Soon the entire surface was covered with plump, golden soybeans. Huyen took the remaining bamboo leaves from the basket. She gently spread each handful of leaves to cover the entire surface of the soybeans. The bamboo leaves were arranged in an interwoven layer, thin enough to fully cover the soybeans but still allow ventilation. Huyen carefully used her hands to lightly adjust the sparse areas of leaves to ensure an even coverage. Looking back at the bean bed just covered, Huyen realized there was still a gap not fully covered by leaves. She stood up, took a knife, and went to the back ditch behind the garden. Along the ditch, there were many large, lush green leaves. Huyen selected the fresh, wide, and clean leaves, then gently cut each one. Soon, she gathered a fairly large bundle of leaves. Huyen carried the bundle back to the front garden. Placing the bundle beside the bean bed, she quickly removed each leaf, preparing to cover the remaining open space so that the entire layer of beans was carefully protected, maintaining enough moisture for germination in the coming days. Gently separating each leaf, she then covered the exposed beans. She arranged the leaves in an interwoven pattern, overlapping the edges just enough to fully cover the surface while keeping it ventilated. Afterwards, Huyen used both hands to gently smooth and adjust each leaf to ensure they were neat, making sure no beans were left exposed. After completing the leaf cover layer, Huyen took another clean mosquito net and gently spread it over the entire surface of the bean bed. She carefully stretched the fabric, smoothing out each corner to ensure the cover was tight and snug against the leaves underneath. Worried that the wind might shift it, Huyen walked around the bed, using small stones and a few bricks to securely press along the edges of the fabric. Wherever there were gaps, she bent down to straighten and added more to secure it tightly. After preparing the fermentation bed, Huyen took a basin and stepped out to the small ditch in front of the house. She bent down, filled the basin with clear water, and carefully carried it back to the garden. Placing the basin beside the bean bed, Huyen bent over, gently scooping water with both hands and pouring it onto the cloth cover. The water slowly soaked through the layers of leaves and beans underneath, keeping the bed consistently moist. She patiently watered evenly across the surface, lightly sprinkling a few more handfuls of water on any dry spots. Huyen avoided pouring too forcefully to prevent displacing the layers of leaves and the carefully arranged cloth. When she saw that the cloth was evenly damp, she stopped and checked once more. Huyen took a pre-prepared dark-colored tarp and gently covered the entire bean bed. She smoothed out the tarp to evenly cover the surface, helping to limit direct sunlight and maintain a suitable environment for the bean sprouts to grow. Then, Huyen went to the back of the house, carrying a bundle of bamboo sticks she had prepared, and brought them back to the garden. She placed the sticks along the edges of the tarp to hold it in place, preventing the wind from shifting it. After arranging everything neatly and checking once more, she saw that the tarp was securely held, and she smiled softly with satisfaction. She believed that with such care, in just a few days, the bean seeds would sprout into thick white tender shoots for the simple meal of mother and child. After finishing all the work outside in the garden, Huyen carried the bucket and walked to the small ditch in front of the house. She bent down to scoop clean water, then washed her hands, which were still dirty with soil and leaf resin. Afterwards, Huyen cupped water to wash her face and feet, dispelling the fatigue from a morning of mountain climbing and a busy midday of work. The cool water made her feel more comfortable. After washing up, Huyen stood up, took the bucket and headed back. As she crossed the bamboo bridge over the ditch, she didn't forget to close the small bamboo door and lock it carefully. Since making this door, Huyen always closed it every time she entered the house so Micah wouldn't accidentally run outside. Seeing everything was tidy, she felt reassured and stepped into the small house, where Micah was patiently waiting for her mother. In front of the small house porch, Huyen sat on a bamboo chair, gently combing Micah and Appo's slightly tousled hair after a play session. She skillfully gathered each soft lock of hair and tied them into two neat ponytails with a rubber band. Huyen and Appo's hands were both gentle and careful, occasionally softly stroking the small strands of hair on Micah and Appo's forehead to make her face look brighter. Micah sat obediently, her little legs swinging in rhythm, her mouth constantly singing sweet children and Appo's songs. The innocent singing of the girl blended with the chirping of birds on the branches and the gentle breeze blowing through the small yard, making the space in front of the porch peaceful and warm. Huyen quietly smiled watching her daughter, as all the fatigue from a day and Appo's work seemed to disappear in the smile and innocent song of Micah. The little dog Pippi came to Huyen and Micah. Huyen gently placed one hand under Pippi and Appo's chest with the other hand supporting Pippi and Appo's hips, softly helping him to stand up. Micah stood beside her, using both small hands to pet Pippi and Appo's head and gently encouraging him, "Come on, Pippi," With the support of Huyen and Micah, Pippi tried to push his front legs onto the ground. However, his back legs were too badly injured to bear his body weight. Just as Huyen let go, his back legs immediately buckled, causing Pippi to fall flat on the ground. He let out a soft whimper and lay still, his eyes sad but still looking at Huyen and Micah as if he didn't want to give up. Seeing that, Micah quickly sat down, hugging Pippi and gently stroking his back. Huyen also bent down to pat Pippi and Appo's head and kindly said, "It and Appo's okay today you can and Appo's stand but tomorrow you and Appo's I'll try again. Just try a little at a time." Hearing Huyen and Appo's gentle voice, Pippi wagged his tail slightly, as if understanding that he always has two loving and patient mothers by his side. Huyen gently carried the small dog into the house. She placed Pippi neatly on a clean piece of cardboard in the corner of the porch, then softly stroked its soft fur to comfort it. Micah also sat down beside her, gently patting Pippi and Appo's head and whispering words of encouragement. Huyen went to get a small bowl, poured clean water, and brought it over to place in front of Pippi. She gently lifted the dog and Appo's head and softly said, "Pippi, drink water." Pippi slowly licked the water in small sips, drinking until it was no longer thirsty. Seeing that Pippi had drunk enough, Huyen set the bowl aside, used a soft cloth to gently wipe around its mouth. The dog wagged its tail softly, obediently lying down to rest, while Huyen and Micah smiled at the dog with loving eyes. Huyen stepped out into the small garden in front of the house to check the fermentation bed. She bent down, gently lifted the sticks surrounding it, and set them aside. Then, Huyen slowly removed the dark-colored tarp covering the top. She lifted a corner of the cloth to carefully observe the bean bed inside. As she looked down, she suddenly paused when she saw many newly sprouted beans that had been damaged, turning brown and soft. She quickly bent down, meticulously inspecting from one corner to the other of the fermentation bed. Everywhere, she gently parted the leaf cover to observe, hoping there were still healthy sprouts. However, the more she examined, the more she saw many sprouts that had been spoiled. Huyen slowly lifted all the layers of the curtain fabric and the covering leaves. In front of her, the bean bed was almost completely ruined, with the young sprouts just emerging, all yellowed and soft. She quietly bent down, using both hands to gather all the leaves into a pile in the corner of the garden, then neatly moved them aside. The patch of land in front now only had a few beans that hadn't yet sprouted. Huyen sat idly right beside the bean bed, her hands still covered in dirt. She looked at the empty patch of land in front of her, filled with regret. She quietly wondered, "Where did I go wrong? I soaked the beans, lined them with cloth, covered them with leaves, watered them, and protected them carefully. Why did all the beans go bad like this?" Huyen tried to recall each step she had taken, from soaking the beans, laying down bamboo leaves, covering with a cloth, to watering every day, but she couldn't find the cause. She sighed softly, her eyes filled with sadness. However, after a few moments of contemplation, Huyen told herself not to be discouraged. She decided to learn more carefully and try again, hoping that next time the beans would sprout healthily and not betray the effort she had put in. Huyen quietly stood up, took the bamboo basket beside her, and bent down to gather all the fallen, rotten leaves. She used both hands to pile the leaves into the basket, carefully picking up even the small pieces left on the ground to keep the garden clean. When the basket was full, Huyen carried it to the corner of the garden, where she usually collected the decayed leaves and weeds to dispose of. She emptied the entire pile of leaves. After finishing, Huyen lightly brushed off the dirt on her hands and returned to the cleared patch of land. Huyen brought a basin to the damaged bean bed, gently collecting all the spoiled beans into the basin. She couldn't bear to throw them away because she thought they could still become a source of organic matter for the garden. Carrying the basin in her hand, Huyen slowly walked to the vegetable beds in the front yard. She bent down, grabbed handfuls of spoiled beans, and evenly spread them around the base of each plant. The water spinach bed, the Malabar spinach bed, and other vegetable beds all received a thin layer of organic matter around their roots. Huyen walked slowly while gently spreading her hand to evenly distribute the beans so they wouldn't pile up. Soon, the basket was gradually emptied, and all the vegetable beds were supplemented with an additional layer of organic matter. Huyen gently brushed her hands, still stained with dirt, then looked around the garden. Although the bean sprout harvest was not as successful as expected, she felt relieved because she had used the spoiled beans to fertilize the vegetables, not wasting her effort. A gentle breeze blew, causing the vegetable beds to sway softly in the tender afternoon sunlight. Huyen bent down to pick up the bamboo basket and slowly walked back to the small house. Upon reaching the porch, she saw Micah and Pippi the dog patiently waiting for her. Huyen smiled and entered the house. In the simple home, peace still existed, and she told herself that tomorrow would mark the beginning of a new journey filled with hope and unwavering perseverance. If everyone loves Mother Huyen and Micah, please subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a supportive message for the two mothers to follow the next developments. Every follow and every loving comment from everyone will be a source of comfort and encouragement for Huyen to try to get through difficult times. Thank you all very much.